Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching in different time zones, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And of course, for the leader that I'm interviewing today, it's good morning for him. My name is Marilyn. For those who are first time in our platform, I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CPS, and we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co creating customized programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, and that includes Petronas, Sony Mobile, PruLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. And the reason why we are organizing several intervention, including this interview, is to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt in the next normal or to the next normal, and those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a remote team, and possibly for those who are afraid that you can't keep your team or your business. So to be able to continue to stay relevant and continue to lead effectively, do join us in this interview. And yeah, I this is also an invitation for whoever is watching us live. Please feel free to engage with us, as well as to ask your questions, and we will do our best to accommodate it. So today, it's my great pleasure to introduce our leader. I hope I will pronounce his name correctly. That's something I missed to ask. Gilad Segev. He's the collaboration man. Gilad is the leading expert in setting collaborations that generate income, an entrepreneur, an award winning author, and a keynote speaker. With over 25 years of diverse managerial experience, he has been consulting SMBs for their international marketing expansions while mentoring self employed entrepreneurs for success. He has vast experience in bringing organizations to collaborate, from large multinationals to small one person micro businesses. So, without so much further ado, I'd like to invite Gilad on stage. Hi, I hope I
Hello.
pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So, welcome, and I appreciate you for taking time to join us today. And I'm super excited because we're kind of like have a lot of commonalities in terms of we actually leverage and thrive on collaboration, based on our business model, and we both work with small companies as well as large multinationals. So I'm super excited to learn from you your experience. So basically, I would have like about only eight questions. The first three would basically for us to have a better understanding of your perspective, or from which perspective are you coming from. And then the four to six question will be, since we're both from the rock star industry, I would say Kane would say that's the juicy part of the conversation. And then the seven to eight question will be very interesting question, because these are very open questions, and of course we will be intrigued to know why did you come up with these answers. And this I will always call as the Miss Universe questions, right? So, we wanted to learn as much from you. So let's get started. So the first is just for us, or for you to actually share with us your leadership experience, your influencers, or if you do have a favorite leadership style, do share with us.
I think yeah. I think I'll start with the style maybe because especially today, and you were talking about the new norms.
Mm-hmm.
So the style is, yeah, I think, is the key element. I believe right leadership or smart leadership comes from leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
We can go backwards even towards the Bible to look for examples, but if we don't go that far,
Mm-hmm.
Albert Einstein is quoted to say that example isn't another way to teach, it's the only way to teach. And when we look at our children, it's easier to see how they look at the parents, and we see even on adopted children, we see that they adopt and use the examples of their parents. It's not only genetics. So I think leading by example is the key element. I can come with even examples, or I have the privilege of comparing different worlds. As an armory officer,
Mm-hmm.
in combat, I had the situation, the opportunity to compare a different world where you have the extreme situations in under combat conditions, and then you ask why are people following their leader, and obviously they can do it before because of his rank, because he's the commander or he's the manager or he's the CEO of the company, and he tells them to do that. But you see much better results when they follow him out of trust, out of faith, out of some common grounds that they believe he will take them to the uh, right place.
Mm-hmm.
So that obviously in extreme conditions it's more vivid, but also in our day-to-day life we can look at corporations, at large companies, like you mentioned some of them before, and we can see differences between companies where the boss is the boss,
Mm-hmm.
and difference where companies the boss is a leader, and the boss is someone that the employees are looking up to him and saying, yeah, he acts like that and we also want to act like that. So my style, and I think the best style, is to lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we can go maybe to other, other examples
Mm-hmm.
as well, from the business world. I like to quote the GE legendary, General Electric legendary manager, Jack Welch,
Mm-hmm.
where the company was in distress and he had to change and to move it from distress to success. And he opened the doors and he said, every employee, no matter what his position, can come with ideas, and my door is open. And the teams started working in collaborations between the teams inside the organization. And we saw the change. We know who General Electric is today, and he used to call it a boundaryless organization. There are no boundaries, and people can come up and speak. And today we see the same vibes. Okay, when we look at Microsoft, managed by now Satya Nadella, the CEO, and he also has special times in his calendar, in his schedule, when he speaks, opens the doors and speaks to any employee to bring ideas and to see, and then they see the way he works, and they want to be the same. They thrive on his vibes. So I think leading by example is a very important leadership skill always, but especially today in a changing world.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with us. And obviously, I've heard so many times. I'm because I've been always asking this question as well. And definitely, leading by example is really a key for you to be able to really lead your team, right? And it's interesting that you've shared with us about what Jack Walsh has done in GE, where he created, like, a boundaryless organization where everyone can actually like share their ideas. And obviously, when it comes to, we've been hearing a lot about diversity and inclusions, and like, those are two words, but then up to which extent are they really, like, using this diversity and inclusions. And obviously, when you have like when you don't have boundaries, and when you're open to the ideas of your team members, right, whatever the designation is, whichever department is, then that's basically what I would say what you were referring to as boundaryless,
Yeah,
right? So thank you
definitely.
for sharing that with us. And so, having said that, what is leadership for you? What how would you define leadership, having said, that experience that you had and the example that you've shared with us?
Well, I think like we said now, we little described that, but maybe going even deeper, I think leadership is not an external activity. It has to something internal coming from the manager, from the leader,
Mhm.
the ability to connect with his employees, with his followers. It's something of a personal, of a soft skill
Mhm.
that even today is more important when we see the, like you said, the changing world where with the hybrid work of space works, etc., etc., and where the people or the employees might be at home or and they don't meet the manager on the day-to-day basis, they need to have the faith in him that he does exactly, he walks the walks, he does exactly what he tells them to do. He's not in some higher, on some higher grounds. He's one of them, he's working with them. Obviously the hierarchy exists,
Mhm.
but in terms of their personal feelings, their personal connection to him, they must feel that he is there with them, so to speak, in the trenches, and they're fighting the war together. They're aiming towards the same causes, and that's an ability that is much more important, I think, than just the technical skills of managing people, of telling them what to do. I
Mhm.
think that's a key difference, and it's much more important today with the changing world.
Wow, that's really like, I mean, interesting that you've mentioned it's really like more of an internal work rather than external work or activity, right? And again, we've always heard as well that, leadership is all about influence, and that, you really shared like how connecting with people is important. And just this morning I was actually attending a summit, and that reminds me of this conversation as well, that, really, it's really about the experience that you give to your employees, and how you can actually elevate that experience by connecting with them and by sharing the same, like what you've said, and I've been, posting here, is that aiming to the same goals and causes of, not only of the company but the leaders and the team members all together, right? So, that's really great, for you to like remind us what leadership really is, right? It's all about connecting, it's all about people. And in my introduction, I've also shared, I mean, like you've also mentioned about the challenge of hybrid working nowadays, like, where people are working from different locations, being, global has opened up, since that, it's easier to do so in an online world. But at the same time, it has also posted a challenge to, like, to most people, right? In the, is it an opening or welcome remarks by the CEO and president of the company earlier, he was like really, um, sharing like how it has posted like, both, advantages for some people who are actually okay, less expenses, no traffic because I have to work from home, especially for the introverts who are so, comfortable being alone or working on their own. But it, at the same time, it posted a challenge for those extroverts who are, longing for relationship, friendship, and, having that high fives and all of those that you can actually do, like, having coffee with your office mate, with your teammates, with your leaders, right? Which, for a while we didn't really get to have, right? So, having said that, how would you define and describe the next normal?
I'd like maybe to say something strange at an opening.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Obviously, the world is changing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to say that the pandemic only expedited behaviors that we have already noticed earlier. So, some people might complain about the new situation, but there's nothing new happening right now. I'm sorry to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Some 6 years ago, I was involved with a project focused on the shift of employment behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen, and the statistics in the USA said, and that was a few years before the pandemic, that by 2025, some 50% of the workforce in the USA is going to be self-employed people working from home. So obviously the pandemic came and everything is on steroids. Everything happened much faster, but we've seen it coming. We've seen it happening. It's a process that started earlier. Obviously, the technology is very helpful. Like we can speak now from Israel and Singapore and all over the world. So it saved a lot of hardship, business hardships. But the shift already started before. But the pandemic obviously put it on a boost. Okay, it's much faster. I don't think anyone knows exactly how fast it's going to happen. We're still in the midst of that. But the fact that we're being able to adapt so fast to these changes is because it started happening even before that. So we were going there. We're all on Zoom. We are now on StreamYard. This platform existed before the pandemic. We didn't use them, not all of us, but they were there. So the tools, the world was already going towards the direction. Uh, I think companies would have to learn and to rely on outsourcing of further or much deeper positions than used to be in the past. We used to have, I don't know, external accounting, but now it might be formal positions relying on independent employees. Could be operation managers, client services, even lower level laborers, installment of all kinds of technician stuff in people's homes. Suddenly will be external people working for the companies, not the hardcore employees. So this change is happening, and it's much faster now. So that's the changing world, and companies will have to learn how to manage people that are not only working for home, but are not even employees of the companies. And still, they have to believe and work with the same goals and same passion towards progressing the company's goals. So that's a new skill. That's something that we'll have to, well, is developing now, and we'll have to learn how to master it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate how you've actually opened it up, and as you mentioned, a very strange way of, that, changes has been here. It's just, it boosted, I mean, the pandemic has expedited or boosted the processes or the shifts within the organization. And just an example of that, I would say, is the outsourcing. I mean, this is not new, especially in the country where I'm from, where a lot of call centers, BPOs, shared service are going on, and it's been in place for quite some time already in the Philippines, where I am from, where all these BPOs and shared centers has been built. And like one thing that I would say, like most significant in terms of the acceleration in this past 2 years is around digital transformation, which I'm sure you agree because you've mentioned as well on the technology earlier, where a lot of companies like somehow like treated it in the past like, okay, it's good to have, like, we're advanced, we're having innovations and all those stuff, and we're moving quite a lot of operations to automate it and all those stuff. But then now it's like no choice, we have to, right? When, especially when the pandemic was quite new to us, especially in the organizational level, where like how can we connect with our team, how can we connect with our customers, and all those crazy stuff going on. But now, like, you've seen like a lot of technology being born, or are like really thriving in the last 2 years, right?
I think there's all, I also, we didn't mention, I've written the book, Collaborate from Success, and I'm bringing it up now
Mm-hmm.
because part of dealing with also the pandemic and the changing world in smaller businesses is to know how to collaborate and move part of the tasks that you do yourself, shift them to other people. Like you mentioned, shifting call centers outside, and that's happening for, I don't know, 20 years already, right?
Exactly.
But we have some belief that certain positions has to be located inside the organization, like, I don't know, operational tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because the operational team has to be hands on and here 24/7. And I think now we will see that even the operations, even the technical tasks are going to be outsourced. And why am I, bringing the book now? Because here I speak also about small businesses that obviously, one man show, 5 people, even 20 people, you need to rely on external powers of other companies, and the way to do it is not is to give up on the idea that in order to expand I need to employ more people, but rather I can outsource, I can collaborate with other businesses, and they are perfect, like you said, call centers, but it could be any operational, legal staff, IT positions, even marketing and
True.
sales. You can work with a different business and do a collaboration where you supply them with your strengths and they supply their strength into your organization. And these connections, like you said, with technology are even easier now internationally. So
Yes.
that's where we are. We are in the midst of tremendous growth, I think, and it's exciting.
Yes, very true. And in our conversation in the previous summit, where the group COO of AirAsia mentioned that collaboration is queen. If money is king, or cash is king, collaboration is actually queen. And it's interesting, like what
Nice.
we have been like, before we started this live interview, we were saying like, oh, if you are the collaboration man, can I call myself a collaboration woman? Because that's how I um, work nowadays. And before I proceed to the next question, I just want to acknowledge Sophia and William for giving us some love here from Facebook. And for those who are actually watching or seeing us live, feel free to give your comments or questions so that you can engage with us live, and probably we can answer some of your questions as well. Gilad and I will do our best to answer your question. Our
Definitely.
questions, right? So yeah, and so that leads me, I mean, we've defined what leadership is, and what's the challenges that the next normals, or even opportunities, I would say, that the next normal has uh, given us in this last 2 years. But obviously there's quite a lot of probably problems that's been there even before the pandemic, right? So from your experience working with corporate leaders, or being in your previous work for over 25 years, what would you say that would be the top, or are the top three problems that most leaders do face?
It's an interesting question actually, because I'm in the midst of the connecting the book and corporate world, and we're in the midst of developing some solutions, and
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly the questions we are dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we defined it the answer, the way we understand the answer to this question, is I think the main problem, or the three main problems, like you say, but the main one is causing the C-level managers to think of global corporate goals
Mm-hmm.
rather than the day-to-day problem solving. You know, we've got the high-level managers who think where would the organization go in 10 years or 5 years, and we've got the VCs and VPs, sorry, and then we've got the C-level managers who are in practical life they are managing the company, and they are immersed in the day-to-day problem solving and extinguishing fires that spark on a daily basis. And we see that when we go to these organizations and we set a collaboration between the C-level managers, and we take them towards the company goals, like we managed earlier as a small example with the General Electric, but we take them out of there, that really helps the CEOs push the wagon forward much smoother. So I think that's the main problem, is taking the C-level management out of the day-to-day hardships and uniting them towards the higher goals of the company. And that also includes, the other issue might be pushing them or pushing the organization towards a creative flexibility. Okay, we know the example we all say about Madonna, the singer, that we always say she invents herself new again every few years. She's something else. But that's also true to larger organization. Obviously, it's harder for a company of 10,000 employees, but it's also not so easy for a company of organization of 25, 50 employees to be as flexible and to change and to adopt. But that's a major task, just to be flexible and creative and identify maybe where the market is going and follow the market rather than insisting that what we planned 10 years ago is still true. And at the top of the hardship would always be that the CEO is alone at the top. He's isolated. He has to make all the. He might have a great team helping him with the decision making, but at the end of the day, everything is on his shoulder, her shoulder, his shoulder, and that's a major hardship, I think, for a problem for CEOs.
Thank you for summarizing it for us. Again, it's really, if I have to like shorten it so I can put everything, um, I I choose the, like, it's really like more on choosing the priority or focusing on the uh, bigger vision rather than the like what you've mentioned, immersing in the day-to-day problems that they have to face, right?
Definitely.
The daily things that they have to take care of, right, which supposed to be um done by their team members, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, and again, of course, we've been hearing this a lot. It's not really like so much of a trend, but it's a reality that we have to look into, like being more flexible or adaptive of like the changes that are happening. I mean, obviously, like what you've also mentioned earlier, that changes has been here. Like I've also read like a post from Simon Sinek that saying that change and is like one of the constant things, and it's been here for the longest time, even before the pandemic, right? it's
Definitely.
yeah, it's just really like, again, like what we've also agreed upon earlier, that it's the shift and the changes are just coming like on a like a hyper basis in the last 2 years, right? And again, this is not the first time I've heard this CEO um feeling alone or being alone at the top. Yeah, has been like always um the challenge, but it's also like a silver lining that um that the pandemic has brought about. This had given us opportunity to be more connected with the people, right? Because it was like easier to do so online, right? As compared when we were like working together. Sometimes, there's so many things going on and the travel is like more difficult. And now, like, oh, every week or at least once a month, there's a CEO town hall talk, and that actually gave more opportunity for those who's not used to like hearing directly from the CEO to be able to hear directly from the CEO, right? So it's really like a great opportunity. And obviously we're not, leaving them with these problems. Probably we can give them some solutions, in relation to these top problems. And I would say that um definitely some of the, leadership capabilities or skills would be like one of the things that can help, I mean, address all these problems, right? So
Definitely.
what are the important leadership capabilities or skills you must have in this next normal to be able to continue to lead effectively?
I think we touched it earlier, and the heart of it, I think, is the communication skills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's communication, commu- with employees, with clients.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the clients today are looking at the brands. We are all as clients are looking at brands, and not as we used to look at the past. We have Steve Jobs of Apple, Richard Branson from Virgin Airlines, music, Elon Musk. We all know the CEOs suddenly. At the past, General Motors was a big company. No one knew the names. Now we know the names. We communicate. We relate to the main figures, the CEOs of the company. And on the other side of the same coin, it's a task for the managers, for the CEO, to be able
Mm-hmm.
to communicate, the ability to influence both employees and clients. Suddenly, they need to speak to the clients. They need to speak to the whole world,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a new task, which is creating a brand community. And the community is not just a marketing trick. It's a community now that we need to implement between or unite employees and clients. They both have to share the same goals suddenly. And that's something pretty new in the past few years, not the pandemic, but the past few years,
Mm-hmm.
that we see that CEOs of huge organizations suddenly communicate directly with the clients. They need to unite employees and clients alike. So that's a main communication skill that is practically new demand. Um, and obviously, we're speaking about the new norms and the pandemic. It goes down towards a communicating with employees that are not at the office. You can't. You gave an example that you see the CEO online, right? It's an opportunity, but you need to communicate differently with these employees that are working in a hybrid working space from home, or they could be, in total different countries. I was recently at a small group meeting with James Quincy, who is the CEO of Coca-Cola and the chairman of Coca-Cola. And he gave the example that Coca-Cola is a 70,000 employees organization. And before the pandemic, they were hands-on. They were going towards each factory in each country and visiting them and helping, and also controlling the activity. And now they cannot do it. They need to communicate whatever they want to the local managers and let them do whatever they believe is right, because suddenly there is a closure in a specific country, or something changes and you're not at the place. You don't have hands-on control over it. So it's a new skill of communicating what you want to happen, how you want it to happen, and allow the employees, lower level managers, to do their job. And they have to trust you to lead them by example, that they see that you trust them and they will trust you. So it all connects.
So thank you for sharing that. I hope I got it correctly. So basically, it's a lot to do with communications, both being able to unite customers and employees in terms of your messaging or your communications, right? And again, the number two that you've shared is basically all about communication and, being able to basically adapt in the remote work or hybrid, as you've mentioned, by leveraging on technology to be able to continue to communicate with your team members. And what actually caught my attention is the last part where you mentioned, like, you know um, being able to actually have that trust between, like, the leader and the team. Because in my research and previous conversations, both with leaders and, team members, trust has been always, it's something that has been tested, in the last few few years, right? Although, because it's different when you can see people, right? Like, you thought that the 9 to 5 thing, and that, being able to see them, that they're working in their workspace, is like, oh, okay, they're performing what, or doing what they're supposed to do. And now that you cannot see them, so trust has been really tested a lot, in the corporate world as well. And that's really like something that, is really like, I would say, a long-term type of, and cultural type, and employee engagement type of issues, right? Which are, I would say, a bigger a bigger work to do in especially in bigger organizations, I would say, right? And
Definitely.
it's interesting because in the last years we've been also, like, experimenting on how we can help bridge all these issues of trust and teamwork. And so we've experimented a lot on creating, like, a community where we're having masterminds, or even using gamification for team building, which I find very interesting and very effective at the same time. So, like,
Mhm.
okay. And then that's really, a silver lining for me as well, where I get to explore all those tools to help
Mhm.
out in terms of this issue on trust and collaboration, teamwork, especially on an online space, right? Where we cannot really have that team building with it, and then see each other the usual way we used to do it, right? Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for that. And again, it's really highlighting the importance of continuous communications, because after all, leadership is about influencing, right? Your
Definitely.
team as well, and having that trust within the organization to thrive together, to collaborate again. Like, it's very
Mhm.
important in collaborating and getting the results that you want. And so, what do you believe is the role of, I mean, we've mentioned about leadership, the changes or shifts, or I would say the transformation. And what do you believe is the role of learning in, both leadership and transformation in order to thrive in this next normal?
Well, learning, it's the basic of any progress. Okay, and we're talking about business life, organizations. The main goal of any business is to progress, is to make more money, to bring more influence. And I think that's where mentoring comes into place when we talk about learning, because it's one thing to learn at university and get a degree or go to some course, but CEOs, managers of larger entrepreneurs of larger projects, they first of all don't have the time,
Mm-hmm.
and their needs are much more specific that could be learned in a general, courses, and
Mhm.
that's where mentoring comes into place.
Mhm.
And you see that any of the successful entrepreneurs, sorry, they're all happy to share who their mentors are because it's such a key element. One of my mentors and people I'm working with is Katia Island, who shares that her mentors include Liz Taylor, Warren Buffett. You mentioned earlier one of our joint mentors, which is Kane and Alicia Minkus, and they share that they use or enjoy mentorship from Tony Robbins, and he shares in his books who are his mentors. Uh, so passing on the experiences and learning from and using, it's not only learning, I think it's really using mentors
Exactly.
as part of your toolkits is very important in the learning curve of any manager, any CEO. And that's, we started with leading by example. I think when choosing a mentor, it's vital to choose someone that actually walks the walks, not only talks the talks,
Mhm.
and someone or he or she is invested in the industry, in the same industry you are working. He has the experience, she went through the same hardship, has the feeling of the challenges hand on, feeling the pandemic implication in real life. When I've got the companies I'm involved that I manage, a part of my work with the SMBs, that I feel over there the hardship of the pandemic. I see
Mhm.
where shipments are get stuck along the way, ships, containers are delayed, and how that influenced the whole chain of the business life. You cannot deliver, you cannot, you have agreements and contracts, and suddenly because some element is delayed on sea, you cannot deliver it, and you feel it first hand in your businesses.
Mhm.
Then, as a mentor, you work with other companies, you work with the CEOs, you can relate. So I think looking for a mentor that really walks the walks, can lead by example as well, is, we're going back full circle to where we started. I think it's part of the learning curve as well, choosing the right people, choosing the right mentors to work with.
Mhm. And I love what you've said that, learning is the basic of any progress. And again, it's important for us to stay relevant. And that's what I highlighted also during the introduction, right? And obviously, part of this learning is not only the usual, attending the webinar, watching this kind of interviews perhaps, or attending any training programs, but also having really like coaches or mentors that you can work with and can guide you on like on an individual basis perhaps, or in a group basis, like what we have in our mentorship as well. But again, like what you've said, someone who will actually walk the talk, right? Because it's important that they really know and been to the success that you wanted to have as well for yourself, reason why you're getting mentors, right? So
Definitely.
yeah, so that leads me to my last two questions, and the first one would be, if you have a magic wand that you can use, what will you do with it?
First of all, if you have one, I'd like to have it, the magic wand. Please send it as soon as possible. Um, I would say I'm most invested now in helping as many entrepreneurs safeguarding their future. You know, Obviously it's easy to relate it to the pandemic, but it was
Mhm,
true even before that. I started it before that. That's part of how that book came to happen, is to take
mhm,
the same systems we are using and putting them in writing as a tool. It's on Amazon
mhm,
as a tool, easy tool to use. So I think safeguarding families, people's future
mhm.
uh, is a major target for me.
Wow. And at least, even if you don't have that magic wand, it's already something that you do through your collaborations and mentorships, right? And, helping SMBs and other leaders that you work with, to ensure they have that system for them to safeguard their future, right?
Hmm.
So
Definitely.
at least one person at a time, or like, or a few persons at a time, at least you can make the difference even
Hmm.
without that magic wand. And that leads me now to my last question. If you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be? And feel free to share with us why this question, or how did you come up with this and the answer to your question, perhaps.
I think the question is there a system for success?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a set system? Do I need to follow certain proven steps to succeed? And
Mm-hmm.
that's true no matter what the size of the organization or what field of you are active as an entrepreneur. That's, I think, a main concern for lots of people. And the answer, I think, is yes, there is a system. We spoke about a little about mentorships, about books and learning, etc. There is a system. When I work with people, I start and I'll share it, openly, the system. It would start with a laser focusing on goals, knowing exactly why you're doing what you are doing, and that's, like we said, some internal work, and then plan a route, plan exactly how you want to go. There's going to be a pandemic along the way. There're going to be different unexpected issues, but at least you know where you're going. You have a map. You draw the
Mm-hmm.
map. You might use assistance with other people, uh, how to draw your map, but you need a route, you need a map, and use and surround yourself with smart people. I think that's very important, having the right community of people that are like thinkers, like you, that you can travel together towards the same similar goals, and then do smart collaborations with these smart people and use external forces to progress. So I think that's basically the system. So there is a system. Um, I think, and because we don't have a magic wand, we need systems.
Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And it sounded so simple. And yet, there might be, like, distractions along the way, despite the system that, you've shared with us. And
Definitely.
again, this is something that everyone has to, like, remember and know as well. Like, even if you know the system, you have the system and you know it by heart, you know your why. um uh,
Suddenly there is a world pandemic.
exactly. And that's where you mentioned that, there's also like a preparation of your mindset or of your inner self, right? Rather than just, all this system, these maps and routes, or the community that you may be able to collaborate with. But most importantly, it's really preparing yourself that, there might be setbacks along the way, that, probably like a construction work in the route that you have planned.
I think it's not only plan or prepare yourself that there might be
Mhm,
obstacles.
mhm,
I think it's to be aware that 100% of the cases there are going to be obstacles. That there's never an easy road,
mhm.
but prepare yourself, be ready, and then there's no surprises when the obstacles come.
True, true. Thank you so much for sharing and for reminding us with that. It's not always, how you would always foresee or like plan it to be, right? At least, it's a great reminder, especially for entrepreneurs like us, where like, there's always like constructions or other hurdles that we might face. So
Definitely.
it's really just going back to why you actually started, right? And knowing that, and having that in mind and having the right mindset is really going to be important to grow in growing your business, right? So with that, I really appreciate you, Gilad, for all your sharing with us your insights on this leadership and transformation. And before we end, is there anything more that you'd like to share with us or with the audience before we end this session?
First of all, thank you very much, Marlene, for the opportunity and this nice experience and being able to collaborate with you, hopefully now and in the future in other projects. I'm available. You've got all my details down below.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is anything anyone has to ask, please feel free. I'm accessible and available, and let's grow businesses together. And as I said, the book is on Amazon. You can find it. It's got some hints and hints on how to progress easier. And have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this really, I would say, very straightforward and insightful conversation with you. And of course, thank you everyone for watching. And whether you're watching this live or in a replay. So, and please do join us in this journey to create more opportunities for every one of us through similar interventions. And again, remember that even the richest investors in this world would say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. And so, if your action creates a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and do get in touch with us. You would find us in social media as well, and I've posted my email address. If you have any questions or anything that we can help you with, do connect with us. Thank you, and have a nice day, everyone. Thank you again, Gilad.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Have a great day.